Greetings all, and welcome to Daily Pali Reading. Today we are going to be looking at the Samadhi Sutta. If you've been following the uploads in kind of the chronological order, the 2 or 3 of you who do that, you'll know that we are in the midst of the Ratana Sutta, and verse 5 is on deck. And that verse deals a little bit with Samadhi. I was just sort of reading through some random suttas, and this Samadhi Sutta came up, and I thought, well, that's a nice synchronicity, so why don't we look at this? We'll take this fork in the path, and then we will head back to the Ratana Sutta. So here we, and we'll just, instead of reading this whole thing, we'll just do it kind of sentence by sentence or clause by clause. So we begin with Sāvatthinidānaṃ. This has come up before, maybe in the Anicca Sutta. This is sort of an abbreviated way of just telling us where the following action, so to speak, is taking place. So we have this word nidānaṃ, and as the ending part of a compound, which is sort of the most prominent part of the compound, or often is, it means originating or happening in. This is a tapurisa, so we don't get a case here in Savatthi. We just get kind of the base form. If it were if it were written out, if it were a separate word, it would look something like that. Sāvatthinidānaṃ. And actually, if it were written out, we'd probably have Sāvatthinidānaṃ vihālati, something like that. And I might leave this up. I'm just going to try to change the... So that means what, you see what we're doing here. So that's kind of what would be happening if this weren't in a compound. Now, the next part here, we see already that there are some quotes, and so someone is speaking, and we'll just dive in here. Samādhiṃ bhikkhave bhāvetha. So when we see this, when we get this vocative, this plural vocative, masculine plural vocative, bhikkhave, probably the Buddha, the Blessed One, Bhagava, is speaking here. He's saying, "O monks," he's talking to a group of monks, and we'll go in order. Now, this is sort of interesting because in English, and people who have native languages like English that are sort of subject, verb, object, we tend to think about the first word as the subject. Here, it is not the subject. We get Samādhiṃ. This little thing here is telling us that it is the object here. It is not Samadhi. If no at the end, this could be nominative, or would be nominative, but it isn't. Here we have this as an accusative. The nice thing, I guess, about languages that are case languages or that have flexibility like this is that you can put words where you think, or where you feel that they should go. And the Buddha has, the topic of this sutta is Samadhi, so he launches into this teaching with this word. So it's Samādhiṃ. O monks, develop. And to be quite honest, and we'll talk about this word in just a second, you could get the meaning of that in English, but again, it's a little strange. We would probably say, develop Samadhi, O monks, or something like that. And we can maybe even leave out the monks. We understand the Buddha's talking to the monks here. This bhāvetha is a causative. And I should, even before we get to that, I should say it's the second person plural imperative. He's addressing a group of monks. So this is this is agreeing with that. A group of people you're addressing, it's going to be second person and plural, since it's a plural, it's a group. Bhavetha. Now, bhavetha is actually the causative from this word that we probably all know is bhavati. And this the base of the causative is bhavati. And in this case, we could probably get an idea of the meaning. And I should also say, when I go through like this, we're kind of quickly, I shouldn't be doing this quickly, but I've used this word develop. But let's explore this a little more and sort of start to get a feel for how when we settle on a word, we're kind of restricting the meaning here that we have to do when we translate. But in the Pali, this word bhavetha, being a causative of bhavati, it means something along the lines of make, become. That's what the causative means. You're the verbal idea, you're causing the verbal idea to come into being. So cause samadhi to exist. And that's how we get this notion of cultivate or develop. So that's sort of, to me, that's a very interesting aspect of, the use of this word here. Then the Buddha goes on, Samāhito bhikkhave, bhikkhu yathābhūtaṃ pajānāti. Again, we have O monks, so still addressing the monks here. And if we look, actually, we have two words that are in the masculine nominative singular. We have Samāhito and bhikkhu. And we probably, since we've already seen the vocative plural here, bhikkhu is the nominative singular, masculine nominative singular, monk. Now, I think I read this in Thich Nhat Hanh, but the idea when we read monk, we might think, well, the Buddha's just talking about these certain, group of people who've taken on, they've taken up a certain lifestyle, a monastic lifestyle, obviously, if they're a monk, and taken on all these sort of extra rules or extra training practices. But the actual way that the commentaries understand this is a bhikkhu is anyone who is trying to put the Buddha's teaching into practice. So we don't want this word bhikkhu to kind of separate us. This teaching is for anyone. So the Buddha is talking about a bhikkhu, and he's not just any bhikkhu. We get an adjective here, a Samāhito. So Samāhito is collected, settled, attentive. We can think of this, a monk, a person, a composed, a resolved and attentive, a calm person. This is probably describing what samadhi is, or at least its effect on a person. So let's finish this. This calm, attentive person or monk, then we're going to jump to our verb, pajānāti. Now, pajānāti, this is an interesting word. We're going to, we'll just explore this a little bit. This comes from the word, or the roots are pa and jana. And I think I meant to type that. Pajana. And specifically, really, this verb comes from pa and janati, putting those together. But this word janati, to know, goes back to this other root. Jana. See if I can type that. Okay. This is knowledge, and the pa we find in like Greek and Latin as pro. So it can mean to like go beyond. So beyond knowledge. And as a matter of fact, in Sanskrit, we find this, the pa is actually pra, and then prajna, probably be prajna, wisdom. And that is something I think we would probably all identify as going beyond standard knowledge. Wisdom, especially in this sense, is not something you can just read and pick up. This is something that's more maybe intuitive based as well. It's a way of processing knowledge and processing experience. So that's one way to think about wisdom, is going beyond knowledge. And then in Pali, instead of prajna, we get panya. And so I wanted to go down this little rabbit hole just so we could see that this word pajānāti is actually related to this word wisdom. And we've probably seen this a lot in the suttas. And if you're not very familiar with it yet, you will be. It comes up quite a bit. So again, and I should say, not just in an academic sense to understand that these are related, but this verb, in a way, we could think about as not so much knowing, but as the act of being wise, wisdoms. This calm, composed person or monk, wisdoms something. Now, I'm inventing that word, but just so we get an idea that it's not simply to know in a standard way. And to make this a little more maybe palatable in English, we could say knows in a deep way. That would just amplify this a little. And then what does that monk know? Yathābhūtaṃ. And this one we probably, if you read any poetry or any of the poetic verses in Pali, you're going to come across yatā quite a bit. And not only in the poetry, but certainly yatā is used to introduce similes. And I think of similes as a poetic kind of device, even in prosaic teachings or teachings done in prose. So as or just as, and then bhūtaṃ actually goes back, it's the same root as bhavati, bhu, which is to exist. So we could maybe look at this as provisionally understands in a deep way, just as it is. In English, we might make that more, we might pluralize that. We might say understands things as they are. Understands reality maybe as it is. If you wanted to keep it singular, something along those lines. But that's what is going on here. The Buddha tells us to develop samadhi, and he sort of, this second sentence is telling us why. He doesn't ask the explicit question, but he just sort of understands that might be a question, and mentions that a person who has developed, cultivated samadhi, we kind of have to understand this, has become calm and attentive, collected, and that person understands in a deep way the way things are, or the way reality is.